Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome back to the D2 Audible cheat sheets. Up to this point in D2, we've talked about the product and the principles of marketing. Chapters 10 and 11 in the textbook are where marketing becomes selective, intentional, and realistic. A wine can be beautifully made, well priced, and well branded, and still fail if it is aimed at the wrong consumer or if the business has no clarity about what success actually looks like. That is why identifying the target market is not optional, it's central. And WSET is very clear here. Most producers do not appeal equally to all consumers. A wine that is not different, cheaper, or better than what is already available is unlikely to succeed. And even when it is, it still needs to be aimed at the people most likely to buy it. This is where segmentation comes in. Segmentation is the process of dividing the overall market into smaller, meaningful groups of consumers who share similar needs, preferences, or behaviors and who therefore require a specific marketing approach. The aim is not to find identical consumers, that's impossible, but to identify a group that is similar enough to be targeted profitably, yet large enough to matter commercially. Segmentation usually combines several types of variables. Geographic variables relate to where consumers live: country, city, region, urban, or rural. On their own, these are often too broad to be useful, but they can become powerful when combined with other factors. Demographic variables include age, gender, ethnicity, family status, income, education, occupation, and socioeconomic status. These are relatively easy to measure and are commonly used, but they often fail to explain why people behave the way they do. Psychographic variables go deeper. They include lifestyle, personality, values, beliefs, and interests. This is where wine marketing becomes far more precise. Consumers who care about sustainability, authenticity, health, or social signaling often behave more similarly to each other than to people of the same age or income. Behavioral variables focus on what consumers actually do. What benefits do they seek from wine? Value, quality, prestige. When do they buy? Where do they buy? How often? In what quantity? How loyal are they to brands? How interested are they in wine? Are they early adopters or cautious followers? WSET makes an important point here. People who share psychological or behavioral traits are often more predictable than people who simply share a postcode or a birth year. There is no global model of wine consumer segmentation. Each market behaves differently. Even neighboring countries can show very different patterns of wine consumption. The closest the industry has come to a broad framework is the division between high involvement and low involvement consumers. But even this is too blunt to be useful on its own. High involvement consumers have a deep interest in wine, enjoy learning, experiment readily, and tend to spend more. Low involvement consumers have limited interest, stick to familiar choices, and are usually more price sensitive. But income and education do not always correlate neatly with involvement, which is why simplistic models often fail. Early academic segmentation attempts, such as Hall's categories of wine lovers, wine interested, and wine curious consumers, were useful starting points, but too narrow and assumption driven to scale across real markets. More recently, specialist market research firms such as Wine Intelligence have developed far more detailed segmentation models based on large data sets. Their portraits break consumers down not only by demographics but by motivations, purchasing behavior, confidence, and repertoire. Those models are expensive to access, but they can be extremely powerful in helping companies predict what consumers will buy, where they will buy it, and how much they're willing to pay. Even with sophisticated models, segmentation is never perfect. Some consumers will never fit neatly into a category. But a good segmentation exercise allows a business to make realistic assumptions about pricing, route to market, and a marketing tone. And that's what WSET wants you to understand. Segmentation alone is not enough. It needs to be tested and refined through market research. Market research is the gathering and analysis of data about a particular market segment in order to understand what that segment actually wants or needs. It can be used before a product is developed, during the creation of a marketing strategy, or after a campaign has launched to monitor effectiveness. Research might aim to answer questions such as how much consumers are willing to pay, which features matter most, or whether demand exists at all. Methods include surveys, focus groups, interviews, observation of consumer behavior, and secondary research using existing data sets or reports. Each method has cost, limitations, and bias, which is why the textbook stresses the importance of being clear about the purpose of the research before conducting it. Poorly designed research wastes time and money and can mislead decision making. Observing consumer behavior is a particularly valuable tool. How people move through shops, how they interact with staff, what they buy together, how they browse websites, and how long they spend on pages all provide insights that consumers themselves may not be able to articulate. Marketing influences behavior by drawing attention to needs, reducing effort, highlighting benefits, and shaping how consumers evaluate alternatives. Understanding lifestyle, media consumption, shopping habits, and decision making triggers allows marketing strategies to be far more effective. Once the target market is understood, the next step is to define the objectives of the marketing strategy. And that's where the next chapter 11 in the textbook comes in, and where many businesses and many exam candidates become vague. WSET is clear that objectives must be defined before the marketing strategy is devised. Objectives help align different parts of the organization and they provide a benchmark for evaluating success. Objectives should address four key areas. First, what type of strategy is being pursued? This could be undifferentiated, aiming at a broad market with a single product, niche, targeting a specific segment, or multiple, using one or more brands to appeal to several segments simultaneously. Second, what are the aims? These might include launching a new product, increasing sales or market share, improving brand awareness, strengthening brand identity, or attracting new consumers. Third, how will success be measured? Profit, sales volume, value of sales, and market share are all possible metrics. Without measurement, objectives are meaningless. Fourth, over what time period should the objectives be achieved? Some strategies are short term, others require years of sustained investment. Finally, the marketing budget must be set. Marketing is expensive, and budget should always be linked back to expected profitability. A campaign that costs more than it ever returns is not a success, no matter how creative it looks. So, together, these chapters 10 and 11 in the textbook form the bridge between understanding consumers and acting strategically. They explain how wine businesses move from insight to intention and why clarity at this stage determines everything that follows. I hope this helps your D2 prep feel structured, grounded, and purposeful. I'll see you in the next episode.